Hi everyone, welcome back to the Dish on Aging. This is episode 24, and today we are going to be talking about how to make an adjustment to returning back to regular activities now that the pandemic is starting to wind down quite significantly. Today is Tuesday morning, June 8th, 2021. Before I get started on today's topic, I want to talk about two very important aging topics that have been in the news this week. So the first one is going to be um, there was a new medication. Biogen is the pharmaceutical company that got FDA approval this week for a new medication specifically for Alzheimer's disease. This is controversial, and I want to talk about how this is going to impact the public, and so how this will impact you, my viewers. The reason why the FDA approval of this medication, I couldn't pronounce the name of the medication, so I'm just calling it the Biogen Alzheimer's disease. It's not a cure. The design is to slow down the progression of the decline of Alzheimer's disease. The reason why this is controversial, that the FDA approved it for use, is because there's a question if it even works. It's very expensive, and be honest with you, I think the American public and insurance companies are fine with spending money for an expensive medication as long as it works. What the problem comes up with Alzheimer's disease is that every person is individual on how their symptoms present with this disease, and also how fast does somebody decline. It may take one person, um, 5 to 10 years to see a noticeable decline. The next person, the family may see significant decline in 5 to 10 months. So if you're doing a large study looking at does a medication slow the decline, that can be very difficult to measure. And I don't do research, but a lot of aging advocates who do research say that it's premature to approve this medication. The other challenge I'm going to anticipate is going to come up is the public, generally speaking, does not have an understanding that there are many different types of dementia, and Alzheimer's disease is one type. And this medication is only designed to help Alzheimer's disease. So I saw a graph yesterday on this new medication that said there are going to be 80 million people who are eligible to be screened for this medication, and only 2.5 million will actually be approved for it. And it has to do with how the medications work, and they have to go through a series of medical evaluations to see if the patient who wants this medication actually has the symptoms and the biomarkers that this medication is designed to fix. So there's also that. So even though the medication was approved yesterday, I know for some of you who are experiencing memory decline or have loved ones who are, you're probably hoping or anticipating or expecting when you go to the doctor next week or next month, you're going to be able to get a prescription for this medication. That's not the case at all. Also, it's an IV medication that is given once a month. And I've seen costs between $30,000 and $60,000 a year. So I don't know what it's actually going to cost. And there's a question if insurance will pay, because I'm guessing that is because there's a question of how does it even work? And then that's going to be muddled by the fact the FDA approved it, even though there's a question mark on even if this medication works. So some might celebrate yesterday's news as a huge step forward because it has been over 20 years since a new medication has come out to help with the symptoms, specifically of Alzheimer's disease, not other dementias. And so my word of caution to people, I remember when I first started my private practice a little more than 15 years ago. And at that time, I was providing home visits. I was providing home visits right up until the pandemic. Now I'm providing all video care. And arrived to somebody's home in the living room, was talking with the family, and the family was talking about how the grandkids were doing like Alex's lemonade stand, and they were raising money, literally pennies at a time, so that they could buy something they saw on TV that cures dementia. And the grandmother had dementia, a diagnosis of dementia. So I'm just meeting the family and I say, save your pennies. That doesn't work. There is no cure for dementia. There's nothing that can help dementia. So I was then unceremoniously thrown out of that home and politely requested that I never return. And as I'm walking to my car, I realized that I burst their bubble. Also, the family was going by a money back guarantee advertisement on television. What ended up happening, it took 10 years, but the FDA eventually said that company was a fraud. And the question was, how did that get tied up in the courts for 10 years? Well, it did. And then the courts decided that company had to return every penny that it collected from customers because the product didn't work. And so, what I now tell people, if you're interested in a product for a cure or to help reduce symptoms of dementia or Alzheimer's disease, I now tell people, instead of saying save your pennies, don't buy something that doesn't work, I now tell people save your receipt, so that in a decade, when the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, finds there was never enough evidence for the company to say that it helped, if you can produce a receipt, you then get your money back. So I actually changed my clinical intervention for that. So anybody who's moving forward in the next several months, couple of years, I question whether or not this medication is going to be in the market a year from now. But at any rate, I also respect, just like this family I was talking to in the living room, they're looking for hope. And that's the kind of the push forward with getting these treatments available to the public, is so many families are looking for hope, because it's the last thing anybody wants to hear is the doctor saying there's nothing we can do about this illness. And so I can see that side of the argument. So those who want to move forward and get hope from this new Biogen medication, my advice is hold on to your receipts, keep them in a safe place. Should you, a decade or more from now, be entitled to getting all your money back, because the product never worked, never lived up to its claims. The claims were never accurate in the first place. So that is the controversy about this new medication that's coming out. So kind of tamp your enthusiasm as we're moving forward with this. The other topic in the news, I was delighted this week that there was a national news story talking about the problem that I have been dealing with every week since the pandemic started, and that is new outbreaks of COVID in nursing homes. I'm estimating every 7 to 10 days, and that has been consistent since the start of the pandemic. I think now it might be every, I don't know, 14 to 20 days. What's driving the outbreaks? Outbreak is defined by Medicare and Medicaid services as if any one staff or resident tests positive for COVID, then it's considered an outbreak. And what's been happening, and this is the reason why I want everyone to stay out of nursing homes. I know you may not have a say in it if something comes up very dramatic and you absolutely need the care. But this is the reason why I'm telling people, if at all possible, stay away from the nursing homes, because they're continuing to get outbreaks. Now, what the news story was about was most nursing home residents across the country, including in Pennsylvania, have been vaccinated, and most of the staff have not. And so what's happening is the staff is constantly, and they're one at a time. It's not like they're getting 20 or 200 positives. It's one at a time. It's like a trickle every 10 to 14 to 20 days. Now, what happens is if somebody works there, tests positive for COVID, then all the visitation, all the activity in the program gets shut down for a period of days. Each one of the residents has to return to their room. They cannot have meals at the dining room table with friends. They can't hold the activities. What's getting me is Medicare is telling the nursing homes the residents can't even go sit outside on the back porch as part of an activity, and when there's been an outbreak in the building. And then CDC and Medicare Services has a protocol. They have to go 10 days. They have to test everybody in the building again to make sure they're all clear for COVID. Then they can open it up again. So then the social workers are calling everybody's family saying we're open again for visits, family visits again. So it's been very disheartening because you get the call, it's open up, and then a week, 10 days, 20 days later, you get the call, no, we're shut down again. And from a perspective of mental health, this has been an absolute disaster. So, and I also think what's going to happen, what it gets down to, the news story didn't talk about how new positives shut down all the activities and family visits for the entire building. What they did talk about is the discrepancy between residents are vaccinated and staff are not, and that's a problem. And there's going to be more conversation about it. I want the news media also to talk about how the the residents are doing what they need to do. They got vaccinated, and then the staff are exercising their right to refuse medication. But then when they get COVID, they then, of course, can't come to work for the next 10 days. But at the same time, every resident, every family of those residents are impacted by that employee's decision not to get vaccinated. So those are the two topics that we need to follow. I think this nursing home problem, nursing home COVID, I think COVID's going to continue in nursing homes even after the community is all clear. I have no scientific reason to say that. It's just my sense and how watching things. I do video conversations with people who are living in the nursing homes locally. I'm having the conversations weekly, and so that is reason to be concerned. Now I want to switch to today's topic, to how to adjust to going back outside. One of the great things here in Pennsylvania is at the end of this month in June, the governor has already said we're going to be at 70% of Pennsylvania residents are going to be fully vaccinated by the end of this month, and all mask mandates, they already know in advance, are going to be lifted. Knowing nobody younger than 12 years old has even been able to get access to a vaccination because they're not available yet for the youth. And also, there are going to be some people with medical diagnoses, immune compromise, where their medical doctors will say you need to keep your mask on. And the rest of us are noticing this past week all kinds of activities are opening. The senior centers are still on reduced number of people who can be in the building. You have to wear a mask in the building, whether you've been vaccinated or not. And I have and some of their activities are curtailed. And I've been in email contact with the local directors of the senior centers to try to keep updated on that. So in terms of activities available for seniors, I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a wonderful opportunity for people to get back to their regular activities. Today, I want to talk about how life is different for people after this pandemic and how to kind of go with the adjustment to going back out again. And then next week, I will be talking about the COVID rules. Next week, June 15th, I'll be talking about where are we now with COVID rules and thinking. And so I'll be getting into that in much more detail next week. Today, I want to talk about a concept that I have developed in the last few weeks. And that is, I think everybody seems to be falling into one of three categories as we're opening up again. Those who are up and running and just back to regular activities outside their house, like we have not been on lockdown or shut down or social distancing for the last, it's really been a year and 3 months, so 15 months. Some people are like they haven't missed a bit. They're a beat. They're out and going. The second group is getting up, getting out, but they don't have the stamina they had a year ago. So they are going very, very slow. And then I'm surprised, but I probably shouldn't be, there's a very large group of people that I am noticing whose lives are very different now than they were 15 months ago when the pandemic first started. And that is having a huge impact on their challenges they're facing and getting back to life as they knew it, because their life has changed, sometimes because of the pandemic, sometimes completely separate from the pandemic. Some of these changes that I'm seeing is that let's see. Oh, there was a handful of people who retired last year. They were retirement age, but hadn't planned on retiring for several more years, and they're at a loss. Well, what do I do now? Some people became widowed or widowers. Some of that may have been related to the pandemic or not. And also, some may have had new medical conditions, new cancer diagnosis, heart attack, stroke, and that has impacted. They now, maybe their doctor is saying, you wherever you go, you have to wear a mask, and I don't want you around crowds, even though you've been fully vaccinated. And that can create a lot of anxiety, because we're never sure when we're out in public if other people have been vaccinated or not. The other concerns that are coming up, there might be somebody who's no longer driving. They were driving a year and 3 months ago. They're not now. Some people might have been walking comfortably, but maybe they've had a stroke over the course of the past year and they're not able to walk. Now, how do they get out and do all their regular activities? And that is what I'm going to focus in on after we hear from Gamma S, to see which category she falls into. So let's hear from Gamma S.
Hi everyone, Gamma S here. Yes, I know. I overdid it last week, mowing my lawn. I jumped back into my regular activities too fast, and I decided this week I'm up in the mountains by the lake, and I'm going to spend a few afternoons resting in the hammock. So I fall into that category of people where I'm going to have to slowly get myself back to my stamina. I can do most everything I was doing last year. I can still do all those activities, but I have to be careful that I don't strain my muscles. What I did is I just fatigued myself, and then we had this heat on top of it. So after I'm done with my nap here, I am going to go get some more Gatorade because the heat also started catching up with me these last couple of days. I forgot I really do have to slow down. I am a year older. So I wanted to share with you all about that so that to remember to do what I forgot to do, and that is to pace yourself as you're going out so that you can prevent injury or accident or just overexerting yourself. Okay, I look forward to talking with you all next week. Bye-bye. Back to my nap.
Thank you, Gamma. Yes, this is something everyone of every age. I'm imagining that there are probably coaches out there, sports coaches of kids in school, that are probably really nervous that high school students and college athletes are going to be, without even realizing it, you can be a young athletic person. You were fully fit a year and 3 months ago, and without even realizing it, we can jump back into our first workout expecting that we are going to be at the same level we were at last year. And for some of us, like Gamma pointed out, it may take us several months to get our stamina back, just our regular activities like yard work. So keep that in mind and let's be patient with ourselves. So now I want to talk about a large group of people that I'm running into, those whose lives are completely different. So they have to redefine what their life is gonna look like. Also, people may have moved during the pandemic. They may have moved in with their with family, and so they're in a different geographical area. So, what I encourage people to do who are in this situation is to look at yourself just as an individual. What is the new challenge? For some people, if they're widowed or widower, they may be adjusting or trying to make the decision. They're now living alone for the first time in their life, and that may be something to look at. Is that something that you're comfortable with or not? How does that impact um, your day-to-day life? Some people are perfectly fine living alone. Others get very, very lonely. Others find they don't eat well when it's just them in the house at mealtime, and they've been like that their whole life. For others, the challenge is the single most important challenge is anyone who is no longer driving or lost an ability to drive or an ability to walk, um, or even to go to work because somebody retired before they even had their retirement life set up for themselves. What I encourage everyone to do is to try to identify a building or an activity in your community, preferably that's either free or not expensive, that you can start attending, and to use that as a focal point to little by little learn of more activities as they become available in the community. And two fantastic community kind of points of connection are going to be your local public library or your senior center. And keep in mind, most people do qualify for transportation, county transportation to the senior center. And you don't have to go every day. Most people actually get tremendous benefit going once a week, enjoying a hot lunch at the senior center. What you can do is you can get their telephone number online. You can call or email your local senior center to find out what their hours are. And for some of you, you might be looking for transportation options for the first time in your whole life. So that is going to be a challenge that needs to be tackled. Some people also go, for example, to the local YMCA. They enjoy working out. They go to maybe a water aerobics class. It's going to, it's going to cost money. It's not free, but it can be affordable. And that once you get connected to an activity or a community event, then you'll find very naturally you're learning of other opportunities for people in the community. I'll have a lot of seniors say to me, I know of a ton of activities, but they're all at night and I don't drive at night. And then somebody may say to me, that tends to be a couples event and I'm a widow now. Isn't that a shame? Sometimes that's how things go. Somebody else will say, I want to go to the shore. Usually I would go with my spouse or with my sister, but she passed. And so somebody may be looking for, I don't even know if they do bus trips to the shore anymore, but that's going to be the kind of thing that if you're connected at a senior center or even at a public library, by the way, they have groups, they have book clubs at local libraries, and some of those are geared towards seniors. Certainly, they have a lot of activities geared towards children, but for seniors as well. And that's where I recommend everyone start this week. That's something you can do this week as you're trying to figure out how to build a life back up for yourself. I also encourage people to keep an open mind about where you're living. And at some point in the future, and I'm not talking next week, next month, next year, I always encourage people to keep an open mind in the next 2 to 5 years. If you've had a change in life, a dramatic change in your life, and you're at home and you're finding you can't handle the upkeep of the house, or it's just too lonely for you living alone, or maybe you moved in with your kids and you're finding that it's not good for you. You're finding that your children are trying to parent you, and you have more you're much more comfortable when you live on your own. You don't have somebody saying, where are you going, what time are you coming back? That really can be trying on somebody's nerves. The next person's like, oh, I'll just tell them this. somebody else may not. It might be not be a concern of theirs. So if you're living in a new place because of the pandemic, keep open mind about options for future. Particularly, I've gotten some wonderful feedback this last week about some of the public, the HUD housing, meaning if you have fixed income. Don't think that just because you have very low income that you cannot afford some of these housing options, because some of these housing options are designed for low income. Some are designed for 15, if you have to pay 15,000 cash a month. But that's not everything that's out there. There are a lot of options out there. So that's what I recommend that people do as you are adjusting to a new life after this pandemic. I think there are going to be wonderful opportunities because so many people, their lives have been shook up during the pandemic. There are going to be people out there looking to make new connections, looking to make new friends, and it's just going to be a matter of going out there and finding ways to connect with other people. I think everyone's now looking to make a new friend, no matter what their age, because just you know what, we kind of got a little tired of just sitting at home and looking at video screens and TV screens for over a year, and now we're ready to go out and have fun, meet new people, and try some new activities. So I wish everyone well in that, and I want everyone to have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you all next week when I'll get into much more detail about where we are specifically with the pandemic and the rules. Okay, take care. Bye bye.